Imagine being trapped in a pitch-black room for 50 years. Blind, deaf, billions of miles from the nearest human soul. You are Voyager 1, a compact machine the size of a car, drifting through the unimaginable darkness music of space, now 14.5 billion miles from Earth. Launched in 1977, this probe was only supposed to last 5 years. It was meant, to fade quietly into the void. But nearly 50 years later, Voyager is not only still alive, it is defying every odd. Lately, however, the music story has taken a turn. It's no longer just a tale of survival. Something bizarre, music is unfolding out there. Voyager is beaming back signals, patterns, pulses, and data that don't make any sense. It's heating up, it's shifting course on its own, and it's processing information in ways its 1970s computers could never physically handle. Could Voyager have discovered something in the void, music between the stars? Or even more chilling, has something out there discovered Voyager? Buckle up because the answer might be terrifying to understand why this is impossible. We first have to examine what Voyager actually is. The story begins not with spaceflight, but with a rare cosmic music alignment. In the early 1970s, astronomers realized that Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were about to line up in a configuration that happens only once every 175 years. This was the Grand Tour, an opportunity to visit 4 planets, in one mission using gravity assists. The spacecraft they built, were marvels of 1970s engineering, yet by today's standards they are relics. Each probe carried 11 scientific instruments, and ran on RTGs, nuclear batteries that convert heat from decaying plutonium into electricity. But here's the kicker. The onboard computer holds just 68 kilobytes of memory. That's less than it takes to store a single low-quality digital photo today. Engineers designed these systems to operate flawlessly without repairs, building in backups and self-diagnosis tools. But they never designed them for anything like this. On September 5, 1977, Voyager 1 launched aboard a Titan, 3E Centaur rocket into history. Few could have imagined that nearly half a century later, it would still be making headlines. Not for what it was finding, but for what might have found it. For decades, Voyager 1 was the champion of the solar system. It unveiled Jupiter's raging storms and Io's volcanoes. It revealed the braided rings of Saturn and the methane atmosphere of Titan. Then in 1990, it captured the famous pale blue dot image, turning Earth into a tiny pixel in a sunbeam before its cameras were powered down forever to save energy. But the real mystery began once it left home. Scientists weren't sure exactly where our solar system ended. They knew about the heliosphere, a protective bubble shaped by the sun, but they had no idea what lay beyond. In 2012, Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause. It officially entered interstellar space. Scientists expected this region to be quiet, uniform, and predictable. They were wrong. Voyager discovered a dynamic environment full of surprises. The plasma was superheated and far, denser than anyone had predicted. Cosmic rays hammered the craft from every direction. Most intriguingly, it detected tsunami waves, periodic oscillations in the plasma, suggesting interstellar space was active and structured. At first, physics could explain it, but by 2017 the data grew harder to explain. The waves weren't fading. They were displaying mathematical relationships and patterns that hinted at something far more complex. Something was out there in the void, and Voyager was sailing straight into it. The first sign that Voyager was losing its mind, or gaining a new one, appeared in late 2017. Engineers at NASA noticed that the ACS, the system keeping the antenna pointed at Earth, was sending back contradictory information. The telemetry claimed the antenna was aimed in the wrong direction, a direction that should have made communication, impossible. Yet the signal stayed clear and strong. One engineer described it as receiving a phone call from someone claiming to be in Antarctica while the caller ID showed they were calling from next door. It was as if music, the spacecraft, was in two places at once. They tried to diagnose the issue, but the anomaly persisted. Voyager was communicating perfectly while reporting its position incorrectly. Then by 2023, the weirdness escalated. The plasma, music, wave instrument began detecting rhythmic patterns unlike anything seen before. These weren't random. They were music-distinct oscillations with precise frequencies that appeared for hours, vanished, and returned. It was as if Voyager was passing music through structured regions of space, perhaps even the cosmic web that links galaxies. But nothing natural should produce structured signals lasting for months. Were these the first music whispers of something else? If the data patterns were strange, what happened in 2024 was physically alarming. The spacecraft's music temperature sensors, which had been dormant for years and should have read near absolute zero, suddenly woke up. They began showing rhythmic spikes. Every 4.88 hours, the external sensor array would warm by nearly 30 degrees, then cool back down. This cycle repeated with such precision that it could only be music, the result of external energy input. Even more terrifying, these heat pulses matched the exact rhythm of the plasma waves detected months earlier. Whatever was out there wasn't just waving music at Voyager, it was touching it. NASA panicked. These spikes threatened to fry the aging systems. But then came the paradox. Despite the thermal stress, Voyager's power consumption actually improved. The spacecraft began operating more efficiently than its age should have allowed. It was like watching an old car overheat while somehow getting better gas mileage. Something was stressing the ship, but something was also helping it compensate, optimizing its 1970s music energy grid in ways it was never programmed to do. But the temperature anomalies were only the warm-up act. What happened next challenged physics itself. For 47 years, Voyager 1 had followed a path dictated by gravity, music, and physics alone. NASA could predict its location years in advance. But in mid-music 2024, the math stopped working. Voyager began to drift off course. At first, the change was subtle, just a few kilometers, but by early 2025, it was hundreds of kilometers off. And the scary part? It wasn't random. It wasn't a thruster malfunction spinning it out of control. One engineer described it as watching a sailboat tack against the wind. The spacecraft was making tiny, deliberate course corrections. The problem is Voyager can't do that. Its thrusters are used only for orientation, music, not for navigation of this kind. It doesn't have the fuel or the processing power to steer itself. It was being music gently pulled toward a specific point in empty space, adjusting its trajectory like a ship answering a captain's wheel. NASA tried to music fight back. Engineers sent commands to fire thrusters in the opposite direction to correct music, the drift. Voyager received the commands, acknowledged them, but it didn't obey. The trajectory kept changing, music, as if something was overriding NASA's instructions. By late 2025, the destination became clear. Voyager was being redirected toward a region of space that, on our charts, contains absolutely nothing, just void. Desperate to understand what the probe was seeing, music, NASA made a Hail Mary play. They decided to reactivate Voyager's music camera system. These cameras have been shut down for 35 years. They were frozen blocks of metal in the dark. No one expected them to work. But 21 hours later, Voyager answered. The response stunned the control room. Not only did the camera turn on using significantly music less power than the specs required, but the image it sent back wasn't a simple photo. Voyager sent a data visualization, a complex spiraling pattern of light and music, dark rings that looked almost like a fingerprint or a tree trunk. Analysts realized this was a visual representation of the plasma wave data it had been collecting. Here is why that is terrifying. Voyager's 1970s computer cannot do this. It lacks the processing power to convert raw data into graphics. That is something modern supercomputers do on Earth. Yet something on board Voyager, music, had processed the data before sending it. It was as if someone had installed Photoshop on a calculator from 1977. The upgrade didn't stop there. Other dormant instruments, spectrometers, photopolarimeters, music, started waking up one by one. They began sending data that was highly compressed, music, and optimized, far more efficient than the original programming ever allowed. It was as if music, an alien software patch, had been uploaded. But the most chilling detail was the timing. Voyager began anticipating commands. Engineers would prepare an instruction to music, activate a sensor, and before they could hit send, Voyager would confirm it had already done it. Was it reading minds? The team tested this by preparing commands on an offline computer. Voyager didn't respond to those. That meant it wasn't telepathy. It was surveillance. Voyager, or whatever is controlling it, was intercepting and acting on radio communications faster than the 21-hour light speed delay should have allowed. It had become music, active, adaptive, and seemingly intelligent. NASA assembled a dream team of cryptographers, linguists, and SETI researchers to crack the code. What they found inside? Music. The data stream defied conventional understanding. The data contained nested layers of information like Russian music dolls. The primary layer was normal plasma densities and magnetic field strengths. But encoded within those readings were secondary patterns that music seemed to map a region of space around Voyager in 3 dimensions. And inside that map was yet another layer, mathematical sequences that didn't correspond to anything Voyager was measuring. These sequences followed their own internal logic, repeating and evolving in ways that weren't random. It was music intelligent code hiding in plain sight behind boring scientific numbers. One sequence, music, in particular appeared repeatedly. When researchers plotted these numbers as a ratio, they created a music perfect spiral, the exact same spiral pattern that had appeared in the mysterious music image Voyager's reactivated camera had sent days earlier. This spiral had mathematical, music, properties similar to the golden ratio, a number that appears throughout nature on Earth, but it wasn't identical. It was offset by a tiny precise amount. When they analyzed that offset, music, the room went silent. The difference precisely matched the ratio between the masses, music, of hydrogen and helium in interstellar space. It was as if someone had taken a universal mathematical constant and signed it with the chemical composition of the neighborhood Voyager was traveling through. This wasn't a glitch. This was music, a signature. In May 2025, the data stream shifted focus again. Voyager began transmitting pulsar timing information, the precise intervals, music, between pulses from rapidly rotating neutron stars. Pulsars are like cosmic lighthouses, each with music, a unique fingerprint. Voyager's data formed a 3-dimensional map with a spacecraft at the center. But the map didn't just show where these objects were. It showed connections. It was a connect-the-dots puzzle drawn across hundreds of light years. When researchers followed these lines, they converged on a single point in space about 4.3 light years for Voyager's position. There was nothing visible there. No star, music, no planet, just empty space. Yet every pattern in Voyager's data, music, pointed toward it like a giant cosmic arrow. NASA tried to keep this classified. Music, they shared it only with select government officials, but science is music, hard to keep secret. As word leaked out, the pressure mounted. In November 2025, they finally held a press conference. It was carefully worded, but the admission was historic. They acknowledged that Voyager 1 was exhibiting anomalous behavior consistent with external modification of its music systems and was transmitting data with complexity beyond its design capabilities. They didn't say the word aliens. They didn't have to. What they admitted was that Voyager had made contact with something in the void, something that reached into our primitive machine, reprogrammed it, and turned it into a messenger pointing us to a specific music address just 4.3 light years away. So here we are. The grand tour is over. Voyager 1 was built to explore planets, but it seems it has ended up exploring something far more profound. We didn't find them. They found us. And they didn't just wave hello. They reached inside our technology, rewrote our code, and sent us a map. The coordinates point to a location just 4.3 light years away. That's right next door in cosmic terms. A neighbor we never knew we had, waiting for us to notice them. Now the question isn't, are we alone? The question is, what do we do with the address? Do we send a reply, or do we stay quiet and hope they don't come knocking? I want to hear your theory in the comments. Is Voyager 1 a messenger, or is it a trap? If this deep dive into the unknown kept you awake, smash that like button and subscribe. We are just getting started, and you don't want to miss what comes music next. Voyager is calling home. The only problem is it's not our voice anymore. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.